Hey guys, it's been a while since our last vlog. So if you've been following us on Instagram, you know that we've been busy in the past few months. And one of the reasons is that, drum roll, we just bought the property and we just moved into our new house. Woohoo! Alright. So in this vlog, I'll be sharing you our buying journey, the entire process that we went through and the things we did. I'll be also sharing some tips based from our own research and our experience. So if you want to have an idea how to buy your first home, or you don't know where to start, or if you're currently in the process of buying one, so you'll find this vlog helpful. So stay tuned in. We'll divide the vlog into 7 parts. First, we'll go through planning. What are the major considerations or the usual factors that you need to think of when you're buying your new place? And then affordability, that's the first step in getting a mortgage. That's understanding your buying and borrowing capacity. And then we move to property search. That's one of the most exciting and tiring things to do. And then placing an offer to your new home. Then we move to mortgage process. That's the important things to know about getting a mortgage. And then conveyancing, that's the legalities of the purchase. And then completion, that's getting your keys and moving in. Okay, let's start. Okay, thought I'd be sharing some background in buyer's profile. So we were 1 year and 5 months in the UK during the date of our mortgage application. We're both on a skilled worker visa, so we're both working full-time. We have good credit scores as well. So let me know in the comments if you want me to create a separate vlog about building your credit score in the UK, because that's totally a different topic. So I'm a first-time buyer. It's important to know if you're classified as a first-time buyer because you might be eligible for government schemes and offers from lenders. By definition, in the UK, a first-time buyer means that you've never owned or you do not have a major interest in a dwelling or an equivalent interest in land situated anywhere in the world. So yeah, anywhere in the world, whether you got it through inheritance, by purchase, gift, and so on. So you're also classified as a first-time buyer if you intend to buy the property as your main residence. So, okay. We're unmarried partners. Kai is no longer classified as a first-time buyer due to ownership of properties in her home country. But I was able to avail of the stamp duty land tax relief, as they call it here. So I'll share more about that and I'll show you how we did it later on. Okay, let's go to timeline. So typically buying a home takes about 5 to 6 months on the average. There are many factors that can impact the entire process. That's your situation as a buyer and the seller's circumstances. So it can take longer if you're a part of a chain of buyers and sellers, meaning your purchase depends on other sale or purchase. So for us, it took about 3.5 months from making an offer to legal completion. So by the way, when I say completion, this is the day that you get your keys. So this is where your solicitor sends the completion funds to the seller solicitors. But the entire process, 5 months. I think about 5 months from the property search to the move-in. Actually, it could have been faster if not for life events and we have work and travel in between. So, alright, let's jump to planning. So where do you start? What do you need to think and consider before buying your first home? Okay, quick story time about planning. So actually, we didn't quite expect that we would be buying really soon. As you have seen in our previous vlog, we just recently moved here, and to be honest, I didn't know that we could buy and qualify for a mortgage with our profile. So I initially thought you need to be at least 2 to 3 years in the UK to buy one or to get a mortgage. So generally, what we have researched is that lenders prefer applicants who have resided in the UK at least 3 years. So this would allow them to properly assess your income, your spending patterns, your credit history over that period of time. So what pushed us to buy? Well, number one is rent. As you have seen in our vlogs about budgeting, I shared how much we're paying for rent. So as you know, rents in London are crazy high. So when we moved to the UK, we initially thought that we won't be renting forever and the time will come that we need to buy, that we will buy soon. So during our first year, what I've done is that I've been researching the property market. So in one of the vlogs, I've think we attended in a home show. So I just wanted to get an idea about the process of buying a property. And we also wanted to get educated in terms how the process worked here, what's the terminologies and so on. So we wanted to know more about that as early as possible. So when the time comes that we will have an opportunity to buy, we are ready. So yeah, I would suggest you do the same if you have plans to buy here in the future. So apart from rent, what also pushed us is our own peace of mind and security. So the idea of uncertainty about moving and the increase in rent is quite stressful. So for context, landlords can increase rent if they wish to. There's no cap, there's no limit here. So it's up to you to accept or just walk away and find a new place. So we also wanted to have more freedom to furnish and decorate our home the way we wanted. And our previous flat also was put up for sale. So we were quiet. There was a time it's really stressful for us because there's a number of people coming in to view the flat and so on. So yeah, it gave us a stress. So yeah, and because of that, we've actually looked for a new place to rent. So we were active when our lease was about to expire. So there's a one random thought that popped in. What if we check if we can buy? It's just out of the blue idea. So we wanted to build equity as early as possible rather than throwing money down the drain, right? So why pay for someone else's mortgage if you can use your own money to pay for your own? Well, that's just us. Okay, where to start? Ask yourself, am I ready financially and mentally? How much money do I need to allot for deposit? Or how much money will I need for monthly mortgage payments? Is it really better to buy now, or is renting still cost effective for me? Because in renting, you just pay rent. But in buying, on top of your mortgage, you definitely have additional costs when you own the property compared to renting. So there are upfront costs like fees, survey, conveyancing. There are also recurring ones, or the upkeep costs, that's maintenance costs, insurance, and so on. So definitely you have more responsibilities in home ownership compared to being a tenant, because basically the landlord covers everything for you. So those are the type of questions to ask in deciding whether to buy or rent. We'll have a separate vlog about buying versus renting, and I'll share the factors to consider as well as the initial cost that we actually incurred during our purchase. So it's a major financial commitment, and you need to be informed about making a decision. So carefully think about it. What's important now is to build an idea in mind of what you want before trying to look for properties. Alright, let's talk about factors and key considerations to think of before you buy. So these are also the considerations that we've thought about before we decided. So number one would be property type. Would you prefer a house or would you rather buy a flat? So if you have like plans in the future to start a family, then house may be a great option for you because there's room to expand should you decide to upsize in the future. So if you're single, would a flat be enough as a manageable space to maintain? There's also the concept of leasehold and freehold here. So most flats are leasehold, meaning ownership of the land where the property is built on would return to the landlord when the lease expires. Houses can be leasehold and freehold. So freehold, it means you both own the house and the land. So yeah, this is just some of the things to consider. There are pros and cons, and it would actually depend on your priorities. It's another topic on its own. So I'll tackle more in detail about this. So watch out for that vlog. So make sure you subscribe and click that notification button. Okay, so another thing to think of. New build or pre-owned. So do you prefer a fairly new build or a whole old house or totally new build? So there are also many kinds of houses here in the UK. So like detached, semi-detached, there's terrace, flat, and so on. So it doesn't have to be super final. Just keep an open mind because your preference can also be changed over time. Okay, initially I prefer a house, then Kai prefers a flat. So we've explored both options. What we did is to check with our friends who bought properties already if they have insights in their first-hand experiences. So we weighed in both our options. And then our plans in the future, we've also considered that one before we decided. So if you're not sure, stay tuned to this channel. We'll create a separate vlog about that. So yeah. So in the end, we're both drawn to getting a new build because we wanted something new, energy efficient, even when we wanted newer appliances. Anyway, it's just our preference because it would be more convenient for us. We don't have the plenty of time and luxury to deal with refurbishments and repairs if we get an old house. And new build also comes with a warranty. So, as to configuration, we were looking for at least 2 bed because we wanted to make the extra room as our home office. So yeah, the type of property that you choose would depend on different factors, which will bring me to my next considerations. So next considerations to think of is lifestyle. Would you prefer more outdoor living spaces? This would be available for most houses. So are you the type who prefers to be close to the conveniences of the city life and urban scene? So flats offer more opportunities for this, and many flats are closer to cities. How do you spend your social life? Your leisure, your downtime. These are some factors that you need to think of because your lifestyle can dictate the neighborhood that you're looking for. In our case, we wanted a balance because we're city persons. We enjoy eating out, museums, theaters, and the likes, but we also prefer to have green open spaces and quiet neighborhoods when we come home. So we'll look for a compromise between the two. So we like to be close to the city, and at the same time, we wanted that suburb laid back vibe. So since we're talking about neighborhood, the next consideration is location, local amenities. How's the community like? What does the local scene have to offer? When it comes to looking for a potential place to live in, location is key, right? So what would be the priority to you, your partner, to your family? Would it be supermarkets, shops, pubs, parks? Definitely schools if you have kids or you're planning to. So decide on the must-haves and nice-to-haves. That's similar to my flat hunting vlog. So if you're renting and haven't seen that vlog yet, I'll include the link in the description box below. Next major consideration is transport links. So travel time, how long your commute to work will be, including the walk to station, and then check the cost of commute. So I suggest you factor this in your monthly budget. There are fare calculators online which can help you decide. Actually, commute plays an important factor for us because our work and our role is mainly tied up to London. So we're not seeing this to change in the short-term horizon as well. So we'd like to keep our commute up to maximum 1 hour and minimum walk to or from the station, since sometimes we tend to go home late at night. And then we also don't have a car and we don't plan to get one in the near horizon. So we wanted to be close to transport links. Then we move to the last and most important thing to consider, which is budget. So how much money do you currently have to put in for deposit? Up to what amount can you pay for monthly mortgage repayments? So note that if you have a higher deposit, that would give you a lower LTV ratio. So LTV means loan to value. That is the percentage of a property's value that is financed by a loan. So lower LTV would give you a better access to interest rates. Okay, guys, deposit is not the only thing that you need to prepare on. So you need to allot extra cash for fees. So those are like solicitor fees, searches, survey. If new build, mentioned earlier, there would be initial upfront cost that you need to pay to the builder. So in our case, we earmark around 3,000 to 5,000 for this. I think that should be fine. So separately, need to allot funds to pay for stamp duty land tax as well, because you cannot add this as part of your mortgage. In England and Northern Ireland, you must pay for an SDLT, so that's the stamp duty land tax, if you buy a property or a land over a certain price. So I've said England and Northern Ireland because there are different rules for Scotland and Wales. So there are certain thresholds before the SDLT applies. And these thresholds are changing from the 1st of April 2025. So for complete rules, I include the link of the UK Gov website below. Okay, last thing to think of would be your future plans. What's your plan, say, in 5, 10, 20 years? Is this gonna be your forever home? Or do you plan to start a family? Do you see a change in your work location? Or maybe you have plans to live in the city or in the countryside in the long-term horizon. So those are the major considerations that you can ponder on before buying a property. So you're the only one who can assess what's best for you. Don't get swayed easily that do not buy this because of this, or do not buy that because of that. So it would be ultimately dependent on what your priorities are and what you can compromise on. After evaluating our priorities, we've conscientiously decided that getting a flat is best for us now. We are seeing this to be our main home in the UK for at least 5 to 10 years and not our forever home. Also, we wanted a space that we can just easily manage and maintain, and we wanted to build equity as soon as possible and get on to the property ladder. If you are a first-time buyer, this is probably the biggest financial decision that you have to make. So take your time to think and do your research. And once you are ready, this is also the best time to understand your buying capacity. For purposes of this vlog, I will be sharing our journey in buying a new build flat in England, as rules are different across the UK. Then we are first-time buyers and we have no chain. Actually, buying process is pretty much the same, but I will mention if it's a specific step for a new build flat. Before we move on to the next topic, there are some terms that I may use interchangeably. So lender, this can be a bank or a building society. And then I may use solicitor or conveyancer. It's just that the solicitor are trained in all areas of law. And conveyancer is the one who specializes in property law. And then mortgage broker, I might interchange it with mortgage advisor. Alright, let's go to the next step, which is affordability. So if you are not a cash buyer and you would require a mortgage to finance your purchase, then this is the first step. You just need to understand your buying and your borrowing capacity. So how much you can afford to buy and how much you can borrow. So the primary factors to this is your income and your deposit. So generally, lenders allow to lend about 4 to 5 times your salary. Your deposit directly affects how much you can borrow. So typically, lenders require about 5 to 10% of purchase price. So to calculate your rough affordability, so you multiply your salary or your total household income if married or joint borrowers by 4.5 plus the deposit you have. So once you have these figures, this can be your guide on which properties and areas to look at. So there are a lot of mortgage calculators online that can help you assess how much you can borrow and the deposit you need. But do note that whilst online calculators are helpful, this only gives you a rough affordability or a rough idea of your affordability. It doesn't take into account your full individual circumstance. So there may be other lender criteria or offers that you might not be aware of. So when applying for a mortgage, a lot of factors come into play and would really depend on your financial situation and your personal circumstances. Okay, so at what point should you speak to a mortgage advisor or broker? So if you're considering to get a mortgage, that's the time that you need to speak to them. So realistically, you can directly reach out to any lender. There's nothing wrong doing that, but I strongly advise to avail the services of a mortgage broker, especially for first-time buyers who are really new to this buying journey, and for those people with particular circumstance, because they're in the best position to source the best possible mortgage based on your individual situation. So they have access to the broad range of lenders who have different criteria. They'll be the one to review the products or the deals available to you and help you throughout with the mortgage process. So usually you don't need to pay upfront. Don't be afraid to reach out to ask about the fees if you're worried about it. So in our case, we only paid the mortgage broker when they were about to send our application to the lender. Okay, so based on our experience, we rang a builder to inquire about the property we're potentially considering because we already have an idea and we're ready to view the property. So we've been referred to their partner mortgage broker to have the affordability assessment first. So by the way, you can use your own mortgage broker. It's just that we use their partner broker because it would be faster and easier for us. So of course, I checked the company. I've read reviews online. And I came to know that they are regulated by the FCA and one of the best or the experts in their field. So we proceeded. So most builders or developers or sellers require you to undergo affordability assessment first, or even require you to have a DIP or AIP, so they'll know that you have the capacity to offer in the maximum amount that you're qualified on. So DIP stands for Decision in Principle. This is also called Agreement in Principle or Mortgage in Principle, AIP, MIP. So it's a statement from a mortgage lender stating an estimated amount of money that they are willing to lend you. So based from the info you provided to them about your income and deposit, that's how they assess. And the usual turnaround time for this is just a couple of hours to 3 days. Validity is typically 30 to 90 days. So most lenders perform a soft credit check at this stage and would not affect your credit score. Okay, 1 week before first property viewing, we had this first affordability inquiry with a mortgage advisor, which is through mail only, basically to get an idea of the maximum affordability, both for joint and single income. No AIP yet, so we provided 3 months payslip, 3 months bank statement, proof of identity, and proof of address. Alright, tip, just because a lender can lend you X times your income, it doesn't mean you have to max it out. Remember that the basis that's used to calculate your affordability is based on your gross income and not your net income. So the way we approach it is that we sat down, we listed our projected monthly outgoing so we can assess the monthly mortgage payments we are comfortable to pay, and we added some buffer for contingencies. Of course, at this point, you wouldn't know how much the exact cost of owning a home, right? So that's why it's important not to max out your affordability. So once you have that info, it's time to go to book a viewing to start the exciting part, which is house hunting. Okay, we move to property search. So when we were still planning, we first started to look up online through property search website such as Rightmove and Zoopla. Then we've also checked the websites of the new build developers. We've checked the locations of their development. Then the websites of estate agents. We actually did this when we're about to turn 1 year in the UK because we're exploring property market during that time. So we've registered interest and subscribed to mailing lists just to look around. And then we've joined local Facebook groups because we wanted to read reviews of different builders and to know more about the community. And then I've mentioned earlier, once you have an idea in mind, you know what you're looking for, and it would be easier to search and trim down your options. So identify your priorities and your non-negotiables. So one of our top priorities before viewing was commute, the transport link. So with check location, we wanted something close to public transport. So honestly, while I'm doing this, I was looking for places that's near a tube station, and I'm quite biased to a certain line. But can you guess which line is that one? Put it down in the comments. So yeah. Okay, going back. Farther from the city, like commuter towns would have lower house prices, but they have higher commute cost and longer journey time. So that would be a trade-off. Let's discuss that later. And then budget. The way we worked on is we considered how much our monthly mortgage payments would be using an online calculator, which is over a mortgage term we prefer, plus we factored in the deposit that we have. So that gave us a ballpark figure of the purchase price that we can afford. So we're looking to pay around the same as what we pay for rent, but we're quite okay with stretching a bit because we're renting a 1-bed property and we wanted at least a 2-bed. So speaking of property, so for the property type, I've mentioned earlier in the planning stage, we wanted to have a new build flat. So we still kept an open mind on non-new builds just in case. So ideally, we're looking for a low rise, low density, like 2 to 4 floors, because we don't want high rise, as we don't want to also have a ground level for added security. So note that some lenders have considerations for flats in higher floors, like cladding. I can recall there's additional requirement for high-rise buildings when I was signing for, I think that's a contract, or lender requirement, something like that. So some people actually had trouble getting mortgages on flats that are close to shops as well, or probably on top or adjacent to shops. So that might impact your mortgage. So check with your lender. So once we found a potential property, we booked viewings upon completing the affordability assessment. So reach out on estate agents through email. And then what factors we considered during viewing? Okay, location. So we walk around the area to get the general vibe of the community, the surroundings. So we chose a family-oriented, laid-back, and suburb vibe. So we think, and this might be overlooked, that area is a primary factor and equally important along with the house. So think about how long you would be likely staying in the property. So we check the local amenities as well. Proximity to supermarkets, parks, local shops, gym. It's actually a bonus for us if there's a gym. So ideally, we can do errands near our doorstep. Anything that's within walking distance, we check the high street. And then we spend time and dine at local cafes to really get a feel of the place. So what's the area like during rush hours and so on. Then we check the public transport things available. So we had a test commute route. So going to the property and leaving the area to have an idea on the travel time and the train fares as well, and commuting options to and from work. So if you have a children or you plan to check the quality of the nearby schools, you can research in advance the local crime rates as well. So we move on to questions to ask or the things to check at a house viewing. For flats, you can ask if it's a leasehold or a share of freehold. So check how many years are left on the lease. For us, it's 999 years. Personally, I would avoid leasehold below 90 to 80 years or 80 to 90 years because the renewal or the extending of the lease can be costly. So there are many mortgage lenders that may be hesitant to lend on a property if it's falls within that range. So check if there's a ground rent. So if there's none or if it increases over time, because this may cause trouble in getting a mortgage or selling it in the future. So for us, we check this. This is peppercorn, which is technically nothing. And then service charge or estate charges. This is the maintenance and upkeep of the surrounding areas of the roads. So how it's managed, the average cost in the process increasing this. So for us, we've allotted a certain budget for service charges that we would be like tolerable or comfortable. And then the council tax estimate in EPC if there's available. You might want to check the utility providers as well if you can choose your own, because sometimes for new build flats, sometimes there's a certain providers that's set already. So if it's not new build, you may ask the utility bills average on the average, and then check your mobile and your internet coverage. So assuming new build, you can also check what comes for free or what will the developer provide. Do they provide the flooring, carpet, kitchen finish, wardrobes, and so on. Things to check and consider at the house viewing. So you might want to check the direction of the balcony, the windows in the garden. So west facing tends to have more sunlight during the latter part of the day. East gets morning sun. South is probably a balanced option. So pro tip, ask for a floor plan. Mark each room the direction faces, plus add some notes in there. Privacy, so check the houses or the windows overlooking it. For flats, ground level flats have lesser privacy because people are passing through. Doors near the lift or the main door tend to be busy because there's more foot traffic versus corner or end units. If house, definitely plots near the entrance of the development have more traffic. And then parking space, if you have a car, you can ask if it's your own parking or off-road or you have a garage. If it's a house, then check if it has the potential to be extended or converted into spaces. So check the appliances, especially the boilers, and ask about the servicing, service storages, alarms, communal areas, outer spaces. Check if everything is working, the lights, the tap, the drain, the heaters. Observe soundproofing. So it might not be possible for the new builds yet because you have no neighbors. So check for other stuff like if there are repairs needed, cracks or signs of molds or leaks. So pro tip, video the whole thing because it's easier to remember and look back if you have a video. So You might also want to visit the development or the house during different times of the day, similar to what we did in our flat viewing vlog. Alright, let's talk about on how we decided. So for us, it was spending time really in the area. It helps us make the decision. And then before viewing, we were there an hour or two earlier to check the environment in the neighborhoods first. So this is what we usually do even during our times that we rented when we arrived here. Of course, we check what's within our budget and what ticked our considerations. And probably think on what's important, what's your priority, and what you're willing to compromise on. So once you found the property that ticks your boxes and you felt that this is it feeling already, you may want to consider to place a reservation and make an offer. So in our experience, it's quite a fast market. Once we found, we immediately place an offer. Alright, let's move to the next part, making an offer for the property. At this point, you should have done an affordability assessment already, or you may have a DIP or AIP on hand. So this is the stage where we place a reservation deposit and we've also placed an offer the same day. So what happens during reservation? Practically, you pay for the reservation fee and you sign a reservation form. So this contains the plot, reservation details, purchase price validity, which is 1 week for us, anticipated build completion date, the current build stage. There's also a section about the buyer's status. So for this one, this is indicated as first-time buyer. There's no related sale, not part of an exchange. There's the amount of mortgage required and the purchaser contribution. So there are also purchaser details such as address and our occupant status currently, which is renting. And then employment details. There's also a section about the origin of funds. So for us, there's nothing overseas. And you may have an additional requirement if your funds is gifted or coming from somewhere outside the UK. Approximate distance from work and current address. There's also the information about the leasehold term, ground rent, and expected council tax fund, estimated management fees. There's also a section for solicitor details and mortgage provider. It's important to check the terms and conditions of the reservation just in case you change your mind. If it's refundable, check the time allowed to refund. So in our case, we're allowed within 14 calendar days from reservation. That's what they often call the cooling off period. But this might not be the same for everyone, so better check that. And sales incentives, which is subject to exchange of contracts before the due date. So there is also the anticipated exchange of contracts, which is within 6 weeks from the reservation date in our case. The deposit percentage and amount. By the way, the reservation deposit is deductible as part payment of the initial deposit, so that's important. To give you an idea, we also had declaration that we're purchasing it not for investment purposes. And there's a declaration about understanding that the anticipated completion may change, the estimated purchasing and running cost that was explained to us, and there's also a visit for pre-completion inspection that we are allowed to do that. Plus, we understand the documents and the conditions relating to the reservation. Then we were already in the position to put an offer. So actually, it's possible to place an offer higher or lower than the asking. But for it to be accepted depends on external factors. So as a guide, you can compare the prices to those of similar properties nearby which have sold recently. You can check the land registry, Rightmove or Zoopla. But for me, my advice is place an offer you are happy with. So for new builds, you can check what percentage have been sold already. You can ask the builder, check through the builder website or through Rightmove to assess if it's fast selling or not. So that can be helpful for you to assess your position. If it's getting sold fast, you might not be able to lowball. So you might want to consider the stage of completion as well. So the near completion flats tend to be higher, or the near completion houses tend to be more expensive because if it's completed, it's more marketable. So check if it has long been completed or in the later phase of construction and how agents are in a rush of selling. So time may be a factor. They may be rushing to sell by November to December to boost sales for the year. And if you have no chain, then you have no complications in buying one, so you might be in a favorable position. So during reservation, you may ask the builder if they offer a new build or first-time buyer scheme. So we came across some of these schemes during our research stage. So let's go first with first home scheme. So this is usually where the builders slash 30 to 50% of their purchase price, but this is only open to eligible buyers like lower income, first-time buyer, key workers who will be purchasing the property as their main residence. Council set a restriction on who can access this scheme. By the way, this is for England only. I'll include the government link on the description box below. Next would be deposit unlock. So this is where the purchase of a new build home with just paying 5% deposit. So usually developer pays a percentage of the purchase price to your mortgage provider. This is open to all buyers and not to just first-time buyers, by the way. Okay, next is own new rate reducer. This is a buying scheme that offers lower mortgage rates. Then shared ownership. This is you pay a deposit and of course you would need a mortgage as well for the share of the property that you're buying, which is usually 25 to 75%. And eventually you can staircase this until you own 100%. So check if this is allowed because some builders don't offer 100% ownership. Alright, the schemes that I mentioned to you only applies to certain developers and only certain lenders offer this mortgage on the scheme. So you might want to check that out. Also ask for incentive offers. So some examples is they may offer to pay for your stamp duty or offer some freebie like furnishings, floorings, and appliances. So let's go to the offer. So we've sent a written offer via email, then it got accepted. So the developer informed us after a few hours that they had it approved. So in our experience, I'll probably share some details. So first we viewed the property. This is a 2-bed, 2-bath, and it comes with a right to park. So it actually ticks the boxes, but it's having a just okay feeling. We've checked the neighborhood, the shops, the walk to tube, then okay. Then we placed a reservation and offer. We've informed the mortgage broker about this to prepare for the mortgage application. So after 3 days, we went for a viewing in another location. This is a 2-bed, 1-bath that comes with a parking for 2 years. So before meeting the agents, we actually toured around. The price is slightly higher, including the monthly fees, the council tax, and the service charge than the property that we've reserved. But it ticks all the boxes. It's giving a light feeling. And well, literally, because there's plenty of natural light. So this is also the layout that what we want. And this is with the same developer. We liked it, though the price in this area is more expensive than the first. The agent offered the property at the same price as what we were offered for the first. So they actually know that we're sure buyer. We have no chains and we're first-time buyers. We were offered a top floor because initially we're eyeing for a flat that's one level lower than what we chose since it's cheaper by a few grants. So we've asked for new build incentives and new build schemes as well. So during this stay, we've provided some documents to the developer. So we gave them our 3 months bank statement, proof of deposit, proof of ID, and address. So for purposes of tracking the timeline, let's start counting the weeks from the day we made an offer to the property. Alright, what happens after your offer gets accepted? So there are 2 important processes once your offer is accepted and if you are already decided and are ready in the position to buy and apply for a mortgage. So this has to run simultaneously. Number 1, mortgage process. You'll deal this with your mortgage broker and advisor. Number 2, conveyancing process. You'll deal this with your conveyancer or solicitor. So I will start with the mortgage process first, but I'll be switching between mortgage and conveyancing so you can better envision what happens at every step. Mortgage process. So earlier, I've mentioned about DIP and getting one, which is the first step in the mortgage process. So note that it's called in principle because the amount to be lent to you, it's just an estimate. It's not final. It's subject to change following credit checks and valuation to be done to the property where your offer is being accepted on. So having a DIP doesn't necessarily mean that you meet the lender's criteria. So a full mortgage application has to be done and could still be rejected. Okay. As for the mortgage valuation, once a full application is submitted to the lender, then the valuation survey will be carried out. So lender will basically send a surveyor to inspect the property and assess if the value is consistent with the amount that they're willing to offer you. So note that the lender valuation is carried out for their own use, which is mainly to determine the property's market value. It will be used to decide if the property is worth the amount of money that they will lend to you. So this is different from a survey. Alright, let's get back to the process. So the mortgage broker checks on us if we found the property. We also made them aware about our property search progress and when our offer got accepted so that we can start with the mortgage application process. So let's start with week count 1. So let's call this as week 1. So the documents we initially provided through email is same with what we provided to the developer, which is the payslip, bank statements, proof of deposit. This is just a screenshot of the bank account where our deposit is placed or my deposit is placed. Proof of ID and address, reservation form, which is actually provided by the developer and filled out by them. And they've also asked us about the previous address in the past 3 years. So the following day, we did a video call to basically discuss about our affordability. They discuss the options available to us and the lender that we are qualified on, as well as the mortgage illustration where we have this forecast monthly payments, interest terms, and assumed date of first payments, and insurance or protection. So after 2 days, so that was a weekend, and this is where after our offer got accepted, we had another call and email. So this time we secured an EIP. So we prepared documents needed plus the additional documents that were not initially requested during the DIP stage. So we've completed verifications and some declarations during this stage. So this time the broker also receives the necessary documents from the builder. So we've used the developer endorsed mortgage broker. So check with your mortgage broker if they will coordinate this with the seller and vice versa. So we have the mortgage application ready. So this time we paid a mortgage broker fee of around $249. The period from the mortgage application until the lender issues your offer, this is where the lender performs hard credit checks on your credit file. So if you're planning to get a mortgage in the future, you might consider to build and improve your credit score as early as you can, since this is something that you should take into account. Alright, let's move on to the conveyancing process. So conveyancing process has to start along with the mortgage. That's what I've mentioned earlier. So conveyancing process is the legal process of transferring property from one owner to another. So you can use your own solicitor. We use the developer endorsed one, and I think the only advantage would be things are quicker. They were quick to make things go over the line as they've already been working with the developers and can be more familiar. But I would advise using your own preferred solicitor, probably if you can have a local solicitor in your area, so it would be easier for you just to walk down and speak to them. So at what stage should I instruct a conveyancing solicitor? So once you make an offer on the property and it gets accepted, that's the time that you will need to instruct your solicitors. So if you're sure and serious about the properties, I would suggest to engage a solicitor as soon as possible. Alright, let's get back to the process. Still in week 1, so we receive a conveyancing notes. So it basically enumerates the process which we are about to undertake, the general time frames involved, the schedule of fees, the scope of conveyancing services that we will be availing, which is generally to assist the legal matters on the transfer of property from the seller to the buyer, and then their qualifications as a licensed conveyancer. So as for the timeline, there are 2 important dates. One is the exchange date. So this is the point where both buyer and seller are legally bound to buy and sell. So once the exchange has taken place, all parties now are legally bound. So if at this stage you wish to withdraw, you will lose your deposit and you may be liable to all damages incurred by the seller. 2 is the completion date. So this is the date when the property legally transfers from the seller to the buyer. So this has to be agreed between you and the developer or the seller. And this can only be agreed should the plot be built complete and ready for you to move into. So part of the first communications with our solicitor were really vital information in notes about searches, AML checks, registration of title to His Majesty Land Registry, important points when the mortgage offer is received, a new build report since we're getting a new build. Actually, this is too long to go through one by one, so I'll share and expound more of this in a dedicated vlog about conveyancing. I'll also share some actuals there. So, alright, during the first week, we receive the contract and the leasehold agreement for signing, and we were also told that the searches will be arranged by the solicitor. So we've received site documentation, site report, draft search report. Then upon instruction and initial payment, so your solicitor will start to work on your behalf. So during this stage, we paid initial fees of 376. So the following week, the solicitors offered a buyer insurance to us at around £89 at the onset of conveyancing. So this policy will cover you when you're buying a property, and it will protect you against the loss of upfront expenses if the sale will fall through. So we didn't avail this one because I think this is more advisable on sale with chains. Okay. Honestly, the document stayed with me for 2 weeks because I had a busy schedule at work, so I had no time to review and read the contract. So around week 4, I managed to complete the documents and provide to the solicitors because they've been sending me follow-ups already. So I've provided to them a buyer's questionnaire, KYC process, some checklists about that, bank statements, pay slips, proof of address, and proof of identity. So I've done the KYC checks through an app. So during the same week, let's move on to the mortgage process. We got the mortgage offer. So we received that, and there's a mortgage progressor that has reached out to us to advise on the next steps. So we were informed that the offer has a validity period. So it's your responsibility to ensure that your mortgage offer is in date at all times. So ours was good for 6 months. That was we were told by the mortgage advisor that if it expires before completion, they can further extend it to 6 months. So this is important, especially during the period between the mortgage offer and completion. We receive a reminder that the lender can continue to carry out further credit checks on us. So it's recommended that we should be avoiding to apply for additional credit, and it could affect our affordability and could have a negative impact on the mortgage offer. So we were also told to ensure that we pay our financial commitments on time. So that's bills, credit card payments, as they will show up on the credit file if we have a late payment. So these are only the key things you should know. I'll be sharing just a high-level mortgage in conveyancing process. I'll share more details about the whole mortgage process experience in a separate vlog, so watch out for that and make sure to hit the subscribe and notification button. So let's move to week 5. So we've received estimated premium with regards to the insurance. So basically, they are offering insurance so that when something bad happens to you, it will serve as your protection if you're unable to pay for your mortgage. Okay, week 5, still in week 5, we go to conveyancing. So the solicitor, we've received some answer to the queries we had in the email. So they have also asked us to provide the accounts holding the funds to be used towards the purchase as of a certain date. And then I had answered the confirmation of how funds are used for purchase. How is it acquired? So I've just declared that it's coming from a salary and so on. So if your funds would be coming from a gift, inheritance, or business, you have to provide proof for that one. So in my experience, some transactions were queried to me, so I had to provide evidence. Alright, so later on during the same week, the solicitor informed us that they received the mortgage offer already. So they provided us some guidance notes. They explained some obligations as a buyer to us. for us. And they've also mentioned about credit checks for us to be careful. And they also suggested to commission a full structural survey, which we didn't do because we're banking on the fact that okay, this is new build, it will undergo an NHBC inspection and lender valuation. But again, don't rely on the lender's valuation because that's for their own use. But yeah, and we're also banking the fact that okay, this comes with a 10-year warranty and it includes a structural integrity. So we actually felt more appropriate to do this if we are to buy an older property or a fairly new built one. So out of curiosity, I just checked and got a quote online. Actually, through a call for a level 2 RICS survey or RIC survey. So I got a quote of 650. So if you're just curious about that. So I suggest to commission a structural survey if you're getting an older property, a non-new build, because you can use this to lower your offer to the purchase price depending on the valuation results. So if there would be issues found. So there are different levels and kinds of survey, by the way. So make sure to get a qualified professional to do this. Okay, that following week, we jump on again to the mortgage process. So in week 6, we received the valuation from the lender. It's already completed, the valuation results. So in our case, there are no issues found. The offer still stands and still within the amount stated in our DIP. We received pre-completion information from them. There's an offer pack, mortgage offer pack that we received through post. I'll share more of that in the separate vlog. So probably I'll highlight what's more important here is the first payment due date. So the first direct debit payment will be due on the first day of the month following them sending the funds to my legal representative or to my legal solicitor. So it was stated there that the first payment would be higher than the monthly repayment because you'll be starting to pay interest on your mortgage from the date the lender releases the fund, which is usually the day before you complete your house purchase. So after the completion of the house purchase, you will receive a letter direct from the lender confirming which account it will be taken from, the initial payment and the future payment schedule. Alright, so during that same week 6, we have received an advice from our solicitor that we are already in the position to exchange. So they've asked us to provide a written instruction to exchange. So what we did during week 6 was to prepare to transfer the monies to solicitor in anticipation of our exchange. So following that few exchanges, we provided the deposit to the solicitor. It's just a bank transfer. So we sent also the valuation report from the lender to the solicitor via email as well, and a mortgage deed via post. The exact day where the 6-week deadline falls on a weekend, so our anticipated exchange will fall to the next Monday. So that Monday, the lender requested for additional requirements from the solicitor. So our mortgage product is JBSP, which is Joint Borrower Sole Proprietor Mortgage. So the application process is just like a regular mortgage, but the additional borrowers must get an independent legal advice as they will share the liability but will have no benefits. So JBSP can be between partners, friends, siblings, parent, and children. So as the term says, joint borrower sole proprietor, only one person will be the sole proprietor, meaning the joint borrower would not have any ownership but would be jointly liable for the mortgage debt. So it's important thing to note, and this is not for everyone. Undertake this step if you fully understand it. So we've decided on this route. So as mentioned earlier, Kai is no longer a first-time buyer and I'm a first-time buyer. And if you're a first-time buyer here in England, you'll have a stamp duty land tax relief up to a certain amount. So it would be also give us a better affordability because it would be based on 2 incomes or combined incomes. It would give us higher and better affordability. So you don't have to utilize the maximum amount It's just that there are more options that open to us with regards to the property choices, and we have access to better rates. At the same time, we were able to avail of the stamp duty relief up to certain amount. So if you're married or into a civil partnership, this would be another story because you'll be treated as one entity. So even if one of you is a first-time buyer, you have to pay the standard rate. So not all lenders offer the JBSP, by the way. All right, the lender requested the joint buyer or Kai to obtain an independent legal advice with the independent solicitor. So the solicitor explained the nature and implications and pointed out the risk of entering into the mortgage. So that was done via video call, and we paid around $345 for that one. So during the same week, we received the search report. So the searches carried out are the local authority search. This covers restrictions relating to land or property, information relating to surrounding highways, road, relay schemes, and planning decision that could affect a property. And environmental search. This one contains environmental risk that can affect how the property is insured and can cause potential difficulties in the future. So for us, it's passed with some considerations. I'll just expound it in the separate vlog, but we've queried some of the items there to the solicitor, and what happened is that they returned to us with some of the answers the following week. All right, we move to week 9. So we're ready to exchange contracts. I've given my confirmation to exchange to my solicitors. Actually, we're 14 days overdue to exchange, partially because the lender required the ILA requirement, plus I'm also delayed by 2 weeks in reviewing the documents. So just a tip, if you are privately renting, inform your landlord about the end of tenancy until you have exchanged, because basically both the seller and you as a buyer is bound to complete the sale. So if you have an exchange and you give that your notice, many things can happen. The sale can fall through. So you might end up homeless if you have to leave the property at a certain date. So in our case, since we're moving to a new build, we waited until the developer advised us on the build completion, and we have a 2 months notice period. So actually, this caused a 3-week overlap in our part. So the following week, I think it took around after 4 weeks where they informed us that okay, you can move and so on. But during this week, let's say week 9 to 12, during this week, we got a developer advice about the pre-exchange. So they are confirming that they just have this reservation deposit, and this is the estimated completion date, and this might change. This is only a guide, and we will notify you if there will be changes and so on. And they informed us that we have the opportunity to view the property on or after the physical completion and prior to the legal completion if we wish to. During this period, we also received an offer notice regarding the sale of freehold interest. So there's a deadline to respond to this and required number of respondents. So we just responded to that one via mail. So I think I've shared the key things about the conveyancing process. It's actually too long to vlog to share all the nitty-gritty. I will share more details about each step we went through, the documents, and so on in the entire process in a separate vlog. So, yep, let's move on to the next one. Completion. So before we dive into the actual completion, I'll share the things that we did before the actual completion date. So let's call this pre-completion week 13. So a day before the completion, we receive an invitation from the developer to visit the development. So we can have it inspected by a qualified inspector. So we immediately scouted for a qualified inspector who covers the area. So this is a snagging survey, as they call it. So it's more for the quality and workmanship and finish. In contrast or in comparison to surveys, which is more focused on the value and structural integrity. So in the event that any minor snagging issues are identified, they will resolve that before legal completion. So they informed us as well that if it's not possible to remediate for reasons that are out of their control, they will provide a statement of incomplete work, so that confirms exactly what work is required and when they expect to have it completed. So we were also given a copy of the pre-completion inspection checklist from the NHQP that's by the developer. So NHQP stands for New Homes Quality Board. It's a non-profit organization dedicated to improving the quality of new homes and customer service provided by the developers. All right. The day of the completion, we were informed by the developers that it's already done, it's built complete, and they have met the target. So it has undergone NHBC inspection, which normally happens on the day of the property and is anticipated on the build complete. So NHBC is the UK's leading independent new home warranty and insurance provider. That's what's said in their website. So once a property has passed the NHBC inspection, the solicitor will be informed and will be served a 10 to 14 day notice period to legally complete. So the following day, after the build completion, so the notice to complete was formally served to our solicitor. So we were given 14 days to complete. So I arranged a final date to complete with our solicitor. So I actually utilized the last day because I'm out of the country during that time. And I reached out to the mortgage advisor to ask about the rates after a change in Bank of England base rates. So actually I've learned that the lenders will not necessarily follow the rate change, at least for fixed rated mortgages. And she mentioned that the change is not that significant to go through the process again, and we have already exchanged, meaning we're bound to purchase regardless if we have a mortgage offer or not. So the developer also reached out during this week to arrange a home demonstration. We've booked a snagging company immediately during this week because we got a cancellation during the same day and the first booking that we have. So we had to search for another company and book again. So the following week, that's week 14, we had a snag survey performed. Kai is the one who looked onto this one. So we paid around $350, and the snag report was received by snagging company after a few days. So this is the list of snags containing findings about workmanship, general condition of the appliances, and the actions required. So I highly recommend getting this one. I suggest to have a proper snagging survey, and then double check if they are a member of a professional body and have a professional indemnity insurance to cover the work that they're doing, and they have a trained eyes to do it. So I highly recommend that one. So the snag list was forwarded to developer, which were actually detailed and specific. So we've also raised and highlighted the things that we think are urgent issues among others. So the rest were just cosmetic. All right, the following week, that's week 15, we had a home demo and a pre-inspection visit. So we were guided by the builder representative. He managed to give us a walkthrough how to run the appliances, operate the central heating, the security cameras, alarms, even though this was been tested during the snagging already. So some tips during the home demo or the pre-inspection visit. So raise your queries with the builder representative. Don't forget to ask about instructions, manuals, and warranties, especially for the heaters, appliances, electricals, and anything installed inside your house. You might want to take measurements as well. Check the spaces so you can envision the furnitures that you will buy, and then ask the developer about the utility providers. This is something that you can set up after completion or prior to move in, and then you may want to check the status of the snags that initially raised if not remediated. All right, let's move to week 16. So during this week, we instructed the solicitor to complete in writing via email. So we had a draft completion statement received from solicitors, and the monies payable. Again, ask for a breakdown for this one. So the day before completion, I transferred the funds. So this contains the remaining fees, the initial fees to the developer, and the stamp duty land tax. And during the completion, we receive an email from the solicitor that we have formally completed. So this is the day you get your keys. So for us, it's a weekday and we're busy with work. So we got the keys just that same weekend. So we were also told by our solicitors that they're already in the process of settling the stamp duty. Just a note that your stamp duty land tax return must be sent to the HMRC within 14 days of the effective date of the purchase. So the registration, we were told that the RAND registry is currently experiencing delays of approximately 16 months for first registrations. So please bear this in mind if you are looking to refinance or sell in the future. So as to the new home demonstration inspection that we've done, we received the report as well. So that's from the developer. It includes the reading for the electric and water, list of keys, and the status of each section of the house, like the bathroom, kitchens, utility room, in general. We've also checked on the status of the snacks before getting the keys. So we've received like a welcome to your new home letter. So it's basically just saying that the customer service team is available to support us for 2 years from the date of the legal completion, which ones to contact during emergency, and running our home. So during the first months, there are some reminders about paints and so on settling in, that we should be allowing it to dry, and we might be noticing minor cracks and so on. All right, some snagging issues, identification and resolution for that one, they've included that one as well. Some reminders about the maintenance and complaints. And actually, we're supposed to be given about the manuals for the appliances and the warranty, but I had to follow up with that one. So we were also told that we will be receiving a customer satisfaction survey from the NHBC. This is around 8 weeks after the legal completion. And then we received a statement of incomplete work from the developer. So this is mostly some external facilities like disabled lift, car chargers, fiber network, and so on. So we also receive a note or a call to arrange a courtesy visit with a customer service manager. So this would be a 2-week and 1-month inspection. And then that same week, we actually received the stamp duty land tax receipt. So it was filed on our behalf. All right. And then week 16 to 17, we got the keys already. Okay, once you have already received the physical possession of the keys, you can move in anytime. So here are some things that we did during the date that we got our keys. Alright, hope this vlog gave you valuable insights about the process of buying your own property here in the UK, or at least in England. So if you're thinking to get onto the property ladder, or you're already in the process of buying one, let me know your thoughts, or if you have any questions, just put it down in the comment box below. So stay tuned and subscribe to our channel because there are more vlogs coming up about this. See you in the next vlog.